The blood in the snow was what caught Merrick's eye first, a trail of dark crimson droplets leading from the tree line toward his barn. And when he followed it with his gaze, he saw her a figure collapsed face down in a drift, skin an impossible shade of blue-tinged gray, frost already forming on the tattered leather she wore. Finn had lived 30 winters on this frontier farm, the last 8 of them alone after his father passed. And in all that time, he had learned one ironclad rule: orcs meant trouble. The clans raided from the mountains every few seasons, burning crops and stealing livestock, and more than one neighbor had lost sons to their war parties. But this creature lying motionless in his snow-covered field was no raiding warrior. She was dying. He stood there for a long moment, his breath clouding in the frigid morning air, the axe he had been carrying to split, would suddenly feeling very heavy in his hands. Every sensible bone in his body told him to walk away, to pretend he had never seen her, to let the winter claim what the winter would claim. But Finn had also spent 2 years as a soldier before his father's illness brought him home, and he had seen enough death to recognize it creeping close. This girl, and she was young, he could tell even from here, had maybe an hour left if he did nothing. With a curse that would have made his mother box his ears, Finn dropped the axe and ran toward her. Up close, she looked even worse. Her skin had a sickly pallor beneath its natural green, lips cracked and bleeding, eyes closed. She wore only thin leather armor over rough-spun clothing, completely inadequate for the blizzard that had blown through last night. Dark hair, almost black, was matted with ice. Blood seeped from a wound in her side, not fresh but still weeping, and when Finn pressed his fingers to her throat he barely found a pulse. "Damn it all," he muttered, and then he was scooping her up, grunting at the unexpected weight. She was solid muscle despite her youth, built like someone who had trained for combat. Her head lolled against his shoulder as he carried her toward the farmhouse, leaving his axe forgotten in the snow. The warmth of his home hit like a wall when he kicked the door open. Finn laid her on the rug in front of the hearth, where the fire he had built earlier still crackled, and began working with the efficiency his military training had drilled into him. First, strip away the frozen leather to assess the damage. The wound in her side was from a blade, maybe 3 days old, infected and ugly. Second, warm water and clean cloth. Third, the medicine kit his father had kept, antiseptic that would sting like hell but might save her life. She did not wake when he cleaned the wound, which worried him more than if she had screamed. Her skin was slowly returning to its proper green shade as warmth seeped back into her, but her breathing remained shallow and irregular. Finn stitched the wound closed with the same steady hands he had used to mend harnesses and birth difficult calves, then wrapped her torso in clean linen. He covered her with every blanket he owned and built up the fire until the room was almost stifling. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Finn sat in his father's old chair, watching her breathe, and wondered what in heaven's name he had just done. If anyone found out he was harboring an orc, even an injured one, he would be labeled a traitor at best, hanged at worst. The village council had very clear laws about fraternizing with the enemy. But as he looked at her unconscious face, at the small tusks that jutted from her lower jaw, at the pointed ears now visible beneath her drying hair, all he could think was that she looked terribly young. He must have dozed off at some point because the next thing he knew, there was a knife at his throat. "Move and you die, human," a rough voice said, accented but clear. Finn froze, his eyes snapping open to find her crouched over him, one hand pressed to her bandaged side, the other holding a small dagger she must have had hidden in her boot. Her eyes were a startling amber color, fever-bright and filled with fear masquerading as fury. "Easy," Finn said slowly, keeping his hands visible on the arms of the chair. "You are in my home. I pulled you from the snow. You were dying." "Lies," she spat, but uncertainty flickered across her features. She glanced down at herself, at the clean bandages, at the blankets that had fallen away when she lunged at him. "You? Why would you?" "Because you needed help," Finn said simply. "And I am not in the habit of letting people freeze to death on my land, regardless of what they are." The knife wavered. She was swaying on her feet, her face going gray again. Finn could see the moment her strength gave out. He moved faster than she could track in her weakened state, catching her before she hit the floor and easing her back down onto the pile of blankets. "You opened your stitches, you fool," he said, checking the bandage. Blood was seeping through, but not too badly. "Stay down before you kill yourself." She stared up at him with those amber eyes, confusion and suspicion warring in their depths. "Why?" she asked again, her voice barely a whisper now. "Because it is the right thing to do," Finn said. He fetched water and held the cup to her lips. "Drink. You are dehydrated." She hesitated, then drank greedily, water spilling down her chin. When the cup was empty, she laid back, panting with the effort. "My name is Grusha," she said after a moment. "If you are going to turn me over to your people, at least know who you are condemning." "I am not turning you over to anyone," Finn said. "My name is Finn Merrick." "And you are safe here, Grusha. I give you my word." "The word of a human," she said bitterly, but her eyes were already closing again. "Worth less than wind." Within minutes she was unconscious again, but this time Finn thought it looked more like genuine sleep than the near-death stupor from before. He checked her bandages once more, then retrieved the dagger she had dropped and tucked it safely away. He would give it back when she was stronger. If she was going to kill him, he would rather she be healthy enough to do it properly. The next 3 days followed a careful pattern. Grusha would wake, drink whatever broth or water Finn offered her, glare at him with deep suspicion, and fall back asleep. Her fever broke on the 2nd day. Her color improved steadily. By the 4th day, she was able to sit up on her own and eat solid food, though she watched him like a trapped animal the entire time. "How long have I been here?" she asked as he brought her breakfast porridge with honey and dried berries. "5 days since I found you," Finn said, setting the bowl beside her. "You were half frozen and bleeding out from an infected wound. What happened to you?" Grusha was silent for a long moment, her fingers tracing the rim of the bowl. "I was part of a raiding party," she said finally. "We were supposed to hit a grain store 2 valleys over. But I could not do it. There was a child, a human child, and she looked at me with such fear. I hesitated. My clan leader saw it as weakness, as betrayal. He gave me this." She touched her bandaged side. "And left me to die in the snow as punishment for showing mercy to prey." Finn absorbed this, seeing the shame and anger in her expression. "Mercy is never weakness," he said quietly. "My people would disagree, as would yours." She finally met his eyes. "Why did you save me, Finn Merrick, truly?" He sat down across from her, considering. "When I was a soldier, I saw a lot of killing. Some necessary, some not. I saw what fear and hatred could do when left unchecked. After I came home, I promised myself that I would not add to the world's suffering if I could help it. When I saw you in the snow," he shrugged, "I saw someone who needed help. The rest did not matter." "The rest matters to everyone else," Grusha said, but some of the hardness had left her voice. Over the following week, Grusha regained her strength. Finn gave her his bed and took to sleeping in the chair by the fire, waving off her protests. She was still healing, he said, and needed the rest more than he did. In truth, having her in his home felt strange in a way he could not quite articulate. She moved with a warrior's grace despite her injury, and he often caught her watching him with an expression he could not read. He learned that she was 19, born into a mountain clan that measured worth by strength and ferocity in battle. She had trained with weapons since she could walk, earned her place in the raiding parties by 17. But she had always felt like something inside her did not fit right, did not align with the brutal simplicity of her clan's worldview. "I wanted to believe we were fighting for survival," she told him one evening as they sat by the fire, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. "That we raided because we had no choice, because humans had driven us into the mountains and taken all the good farmland. But the truth is we raid because it is what we have always done, because our elders teach us that humans are less than us, that your lives mean nothing." She looked at him, pain evident in her amber eyes. "How can that be true when you saved me, when you have shown me more kindness than my own kin?" Finn had no easy answer for that. Instead, he told her about his own life growing up on this farm, his father's endless patience teaching him to work the land, his mother's death when he was 12. The 2 years he spent in the king's army, the things he had seen and done that still haunted his dreams, coming home to care for his dying father, then staying because he could not imagine being anywhere else. "You not get lonely?" Grusha asked. "Out here by yourself?" "Sometimes," Finn admitted. "But I have the animals and the work, and the village is only an hour's walk when I need company." He did not mention how most of the villagers had stopped inviting him to gatherings after he made it clear he wanted no part in their raids against orc settlements. He was already too much of an outsider. As the days turned into weeks, a routine developed. Grusha grew stronger and began helping around the farm despite Finn's protests. She proved surprisingly adept at mending the barn roof and fixing the chicken coop fence that had been broken since autumn. Her warrior's strength made short work of tasks that would have taken Finn days. "I need to be useful," she said when he tried to tell her to rest. "I am not made for sitting idle." They worked side by side, talking little but somehow saying much in the comfortable silence. Finn found himself noticing small things about her, the way she hummed tunelessly while working, how her nose would scrunch up when she was concentrating, the rare smile that transformed her fierce features into something breathtaking. He was in trouble, and he knew it. The first real test came on a cold morning in early spring when a neighbor, Thomas Fuller, rode up on his wagon with a request to borrow Finn's plow blade. Finn saw him coming from the barn and his heart nearly stopped. Grusha was in the house, but if Thomas came inside... "Finn, good to see you," Thomas called, climbing down from the wagon. He was a big man, friendly enough but suspicious of anything unusual. "Broke my plow blade on a rock. Can I borrow yours until the smith can fix mine?" "Of course," Finn said, positioning himself between Thomas and the house. "Wait here, I will fetch it from the barn." But Thomas was already walking toward the farmhouse. "Might trouble you for some water first if you do not mind. It is a dusty ride." "The pump is right there," Finn said quickly, pointing to the well. Thomas gave him an odd look. "Well is closer, yes, but—" He trailed off, his eyes narrowing. "You are acting strange, Finn. What are you hiding?" Before Finn could answer, the farmhouse door opened and Grusha stepped out with a bucket, clearly intending to fetch water herself. She froze when she saw Thomas. Thomas went white as a sheet. "Orc!" he shouted, stumbling backward and reaching for the knife at his belt. "Finn, get back, you will do nothing," Finn said, stepping between them. His voice carried the command he had learned as a soldier. "Put the knife away, Thomas, now. Are you mad?" "There is an orc right there, on your land." Thomas looked genuinely terrified and furious all at once. "How long has this creature been here? What has it done to you?" "Her name is Grusha," Finn said firmly. "She has been here a month. I found her dying in the snow and I helped her." "She has done nothing wrong." "Done nothing, Finn. Her kind killed David Norris's son last summer. They burned the Baker farm. You are harboring the enemy and you stand there like it is normal. Grusha had not moved, her hand resting on the door frame, her face carefully blank. But Finn could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she had positioned herself to run if needed. "Go inside, Grusha," Finn said quietly. She hesitated, then obeyed, closing the door behind her. Thomas rounded on Finn. "You have lost your mind. When the village hears about this, if you tell them, they will come here with torches and kill her," Finn said, meeting Thomas's eyes. "She has done nothing to deserve that. She was cast out by her own people for refusing to harm a child. She is not our enemy, Thomas. She is an orc. That makes her our enemy by definition." But Thomas sounded less certain now, his hand falling away from his knife. "She is a person," Finn said, "scared and alone and trying to survive, same as any of us." He took a breath. "I am asking you as a friend to keep this to yourself, at least for now. Please." Thomas stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head. "You are going to get yourself killed, Finn Merrick, and probably me along with you if anyone finds out I knew and said nothing." He climbed back onto his wagon. "Forget the plow blade, and forget we were ever friends." Finn watched him ride away, his stomach heavy with dread. He stood there until the wagon disappeared from view, then turned to find Grusha watching from the window. Inside, she was pacing like a caged animal. "I have to leave," she said immediately. "I have put you in danger." "If your people come, let me worry about my people," Finn said. "You are not healed enough to survive on your own yet." "I am strong enough. I will manage." "Where will you go?" Finn challenged. "Your clan exiled you. The humans will kill you on sight. Winter is not fully past. You would be dead within a week." Grusha stopped pacing, her hands clenched into fists. "Better that than bringing destruction on you." "I made my choice when I carried you inside," Finn said, "and I do not regret it. You understand me? I do not regret it." She looked at him with something like wonder. "You are truly mad. Perhaps," he managed a smile, "but you are staying, at least until you are fully healed and we can figure out something safer." The next few days were tense. Finn half expected to see torches coming up the road every time night fell, but Thomas apparently kept his word. Still, they both knew the situation could not continue indefinitely. Grusha needed a plan, somewhere to go where she would be safe. "What if I went north?" she suggested one evening. "Past the mountains into the wild territories. No humans, no orcs. I could survive on my own." "You would be alone forever," Finn said before he could stop himself. Grusha met his eyes. As opposed to now, there was something in her gaze, a challenge or maybe a question. Finn felt heat rise to his face. Over the past weeks, their easy companionship had begun shifting into something else, something that made his heart race when she smiled at him, something that kept him awake at night with impossible thoughts. "That is different," he managed. "Is it?" She moved closer. "Finn, what are we doing here? We both know this cannot last. Even if your people leave us alone, eventually someone will come. Eventually I will bring trouble to your door that you cannot talk away." "I know," Finn said quietly, "but I am not ready to. I do not want you to go." The confession hung between them. Grusha closed the remaining distance until they were nearly touching. She was tall for a woman, her eyes almost level with his. "I do not want to go either," she whispered. "That is the problem." Finn did not remember deciding to kiss her. One moment they were standing there, the air electric between them, and the next his hand was on her cheek, and her lips were on his, and nothing else mattered. She kissed like she fought fierce and wholehearted and completely unafraid. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Grusha laughed, a sound of pure disbelief. "We are both mad," she said. "Probably," Finn agreed and kissed her again. That night, they stayed up until dawn talking about impossible futures, about what it would take to build a life together in a world that wanted to keep them apart. It was madness, they both knew it, but neither could bring themselves to care. The fragile peace lasted another 2 weeks. Then the village council came. Finn was in the barn when he heard horses, 5 of them, carrying the council members and 3 armed guards. He walked out to meet them, heart pounding but face calm. Grusha was supposedly gathering eggs from the chicken coop, far enough away to run if needed. Marcus White, the council head, dismounted with the stiffness of a man who rarely rode. "Finn Merrick, we need to speak with you about a serious matter." "Of course, Marcus. What is this about?" "You know damn well what it is about," snapped Gerald Pine, one of the other council members. "Thomas Fuller says you are harboring an orc, a raider." So Thomas had told after all. Finn kept his expression neutral. "Thomas is mistaken." "Then you will not mind if we search your property," Marcus said. It was not a question. Finn minded very much, but refusing would only confirm their suspicions. "Search all you like, though I would appreciate knowing what I am being accused of." "Treason," Gerald said flatly. "Giving aid and comfort to the enemy. If even half of what Thomas says is true, you will hang for this." The guards spread out, 2 heading for the house and 1 toward the barn. Finn watched helplessly, praying that Grusha had heard them coming and hidden. The minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the guards returned, shaking their heads. "Nothing, sir. No sign of anyone else." Marcus studied Finn's face. "Thomas was very specific, Finn. Said he saw an orc female with his own eyes standing right outside your door." "Thomas has been drinking more since his wife left," Finn said carefully. "Perhaps he saw a shadow or a deer, and his imagination did the rest." "You are calling him a liar." "I am saying he was mistaken." Gerald looked like he wanted to argue further, but Marcus held up a hand. "We have searched, found nothing. That is the end of it." He fixed Finn with a hard stare. "But understand this: if we receive any further reports, any hint that you are involved with orcs in any way, we will not be so generous. The laws are clear. Aid to orcs is punishable by death. Are we understood?" "Perfectly," Finn said. They rode away, Gerald still grumbling. Finn waited until they were out of sight, then walked quickly toward the tree line behind his property. He found Grusha crouched in a hollow beneath an old oak, her face grim. "You heard," he said. "I heard." She stood, brushing dirt from her clothes. "This is exactly what I warned you about." "They will be watching now. I know. I have to leave, Finn, tonight, before they come back with more guards and search more thoroughly." Finn wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. If the council found her here now, after he had denied her presence, they would hang him without trial. "Where will you go?" Grusha took a shaky breath. "I have been thinking. There are stories, old stories, about settlements far to the east, places where humans and orcs live together in peace, refugees from both sides who rejected the endless fighting. They may just be myths, but—" She met his eyes. "If they are real, I could build a life there, maybe even—" She trailed off. "Maybe even what?" "Maybe even a life worth having you risk everything to be part of," she finished quietly. Finn felt like his heart was being squeezed. "You want me to come with you?" "I want it more than I have ever wanted anything," Grusha said. "But I will not ask it of you. This is your home, your land. Everything your father built. I cannot ask you to abandon that for a myth and a dream." Finn looked back at his farmhouse, solid and familiar, the fields he had worked since childhood. He thought of his father, who had taught him that a man's worth was measured by what he built, not what he destroyed. He thought of his mother, who had told him on her deathbed to find something worth fighting for. "My father once told me," Finn said slowly, "that land is just dirt until you make it mean something. That home is not a place, it is the people you choose to stand beside." He took Grusha's hands. "I am choosing to stand beside you, wherever that leads." Grusha made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. "You beautiful, stupid, impossible man." They spent the rest of the day preparing. Finn packed what supplies they could carry: food, blankets, his father's hunting knife, the small amount of coin he had saved. Grusha fashioned a pack from spare canvas and filled it with anything that might be useful for a long journey. As the sun set, Finn took one last walk around the farm, memorizing every detail, saying goodbye to a life he had never imagined leaving. They set out under cover of darkness, heading east toward the rumored settlements that might not even exist. It was madness, leaving behind everything for little more than hope and each other. But as they walked through the night, Grusha's hand warm in his, Finn found he did not care. He had made his choice, and he would live with whatever came. The journey was harder than either had anticipated. Spring rains turned the roads to mud, and they had to avoid established paths to stay away from both human patrols and orc raiding parties. They moved through forests and across hills, hunting for food and sleeping in whatever shelter they could find. There were nights when they huddled together against the cold, uncertain if they would survive until morning. There were days when their food ran out and they went hungry, pressing forward on nothing but stubborn determination. But there were beautiful moments too. Watching the sunrise from a mountain pass, the world spread out below them in shades of gold and green. Grusha teaching Finn the orc words for different plants and animals, laughing at his terrible pronunciation. Finn showing her how to fish in a clear stream, both of them ending up soaked and breathless with laughter when she fell in. Stolen kisses in the shelter of ancient trees, promises whispered in the dark. They had been traveling for 6 weeks when they encountered their first real obstacle. A river, swollen with snowmelt, blocked their path. The nearest bridge was a day's walk north, but that would take them dangerously close to a human settlement. Going south meant adding 3 days to their journey. "We could try to ford it," Grusha suggested, eyeing the rushing water dubiously. "Too dangerous," Finn said. "The current would sweep us away. We have to go around." They were still debating when the arrow hit the tree next to Finn's head. Both of them dove for cover as more arrows followed. Finn caught a glimpse of their attackers, 5 orcs, emerging from the forest with weapons drawn. Not Grusha's old clan, but the hostile glint in their eyes promised they were no friendlier. "Human and traitor," the leader called in the orcish tongue, which Finn had learned enough of to understand. "Both will die today." Grusha rose slowly, hands spread to show she was unarmed. She replied in her own language, rapid and urgent. The leader laughed, a harsh sound, and said something that made Grusha's face go pale. "What did he say?" Finn asked. "He said half-breeds and orc lovers deserve slow deaths," Grusha said quietly. "And he intends to provide them." The orcs advanced, Finn and Grusha back toward the river, options running out. Finn's hand found his father's knife, knowing it would be useless against 5 armed warriors but unwilling to die without a fight. Grusha moved in front of him protectively, her stance that of a trained fighter despite having no weapon. "When I move, you run," she whispered. "Follow the river south. Do not stop. I am not leaving you." "Finn, no." The lead orc was raising his sword when a new voice rang out across the clearing. "Hold!" Everyone froze. From the trees emerged a figure that made Finn's breath catch. A woman, clearly half-orc with her green-tinged skin and small tusks, but wearing the clothes of a human villager. Behind her came more people, a mixed group of humans and orcs, all armed but not threatening. "These 2 are under my protection," the half-orc woman said firmly. She looked at the raiders. "Leave now or face all of us." The lead orc assessed the situation, clearly not liking the odds. With a snarl, he gestured to his group and they melted back into the forest. The tension held for another long moment, then broke as the half-orc woman smiled. "Well, that was exciting," she said cheerfully. "I am Mira Nash. Welcome to the borders of Haven's Reach." Finn and Grusha stared at her. "Haven's Reach," Grusha managed. "The settlement you are looking for, I am guessing. We saw you coming. We keep scouts posted to help refugees find their way." Mira's smile widened. "Come on. You both look like you could use a hot meal and a proper bed." Haven's Reach was everything they had hoped for and more. Nestled in a hidden valley, protected by mountains on 3 sides and the river on the 4th, it was a thriving community of nearly 200 souls. Humans and orcs lived side by side, working together to build something neither could achieve alone. There were farms and workshops, a school for the children, even a small temple that served both human and orcish spiritual traditions. Mira explained as she gave them the tour. "We started about 20 years ago, just a handful of exiles and refugees. Grew slowly at first, but word spread. Anyone tired of the fighting, anyone who wanted peace, they found their way here. We have rules, of course. No violence within the settlement. Everyone contributes according to their ability. And most importantly, we protect each other. Human or orc, it does not matter. We are all Haven's Reach." They were given a small cabin on the edge of the settlement, empty since its previous occupants had passed away the year before. It was modest but well built, with a fireplace and a sturdy roof. Standing in the doorway, looking at this space that could actually be their home, Finn felt something unlock in his chest. "It is real," Grusha whispered, clearly feeling the same awe. "It is actually real." That night they lay together in their new home, exhausted but happy. Outside they could hear the sounds of the settlement settling in for the night, children's laughter, someone singing, the comfortable noise of people living their lives without fear. "Thank you," Grusha said suddenly. Finn turned to look at her. "For what?" "For pulling me from the snow. For risking everything. For being too stubborn to give up on me even when you should have." She propped herself up on one elbow, her amber eyes serious. "For seeing me as a person when the world only saw a monster." "I only saw you," Finn said simply, "and I could not help but love what I saw." It was the first time either of them had used that word. Grusha's breath hitched, and then she was kissing him with a desperate intensity, pouring everything she could not say into the contact. When they finally broke apart, she was smiling through tears. "I love you too," she said. In case that was not abundantly clear. They made love that night with a tenderness born of everything they had survived together, every obstacle they had overcome. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, Finn felt more at peace than he had since his father's death. This was where he was meant to be. With her, building something new, the next weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Finn quickly proved his worth as a farmer, helping to plan the spring planting and sharing techniques his father had taught him. Grusha's warrior training made her valuable for the settlement's defense, and she began training some of the younger orcs and humans who wanted to learn. They fell into the rhythm of the community, making friends, finding their place. Finn grew particularly close to a human man named Felix Marsh, who ran the settlement's mill. Felix had come to Haven's Reach 10 years ago with his orc wife, Nara, and their young son. He understood better than most what Finn and Grusha had gone through. "The first year is the hardest," Felix told him one day as they worked together to repair the mill wheel. "You are still looking over your shoulder, still expecting someone to come and tear it all down. But eventually, you realize that this is actually your life now. That peace is not just a break between conflicts, it is the new normal. That is when you can really start living." "How long did it take you?" Finn asked. Felix laughed. "Honestly, I am still working on it, but it gets easier every day." Grusha, meanwhile, found an unexpected friend in Mira Nash, the half-orc woman who had rescued them. Mira ran the settlement school and had a sharp wit that matched Grusha's perfectly. Finn often came home to find them sitting together, talking and laughing over tea. "She is teaching me to read human script," Grusha explained one evening. "I can speak your language well enough, but the writing always confused me. Mira says if I am going to live here, I should be able to participate fully." "You are planning to stay then?" Finn asked, though the question was mostly teasing. They had already begun talking about where to build a larger house once they saved enough resources. "I think I might," Grusha said, matching his light tone. Then more seriously, "I want to build a life here, Finn, with you. I want to plant a garden and watch it grow. I want to wake up every morning knowing I am safe. I want—" She hesitated. "I want the things I never thought I could have." Finn pulled her close. "Then we will have them, all of them, I promise." Spring turned to summer, and their roots in Haven's Reach grew deeper. Finn and Grusha worked together to expand their cabin, adding a second room and a proper workshop. They planted a garden that flourished under their combined care, Finn's farming knowledge and Grusha's surprising talent for coaxing stubborn plants to grow. They attended community gatherings and contributed to the settlement's defense and celebrated festivals that blended human and orcish traditions into something entirely new. But not everything was peaceful. Raiders, both human and orc, occasionally threatened the settlement's borders, though they never breached the valley itself. The council kept careful watch and maintained their defenses, and there were occasional tensions within the settlement itself, old prejudices that surfaced in moments of stress. Finn witnessed one such moment when a human farmer, drunk at a harvest celebration, started ranting about how the orcs were taking more than their fair share of resources. He was shouted down by both humans and orcs, but the ugly words hung in the air. Later, Finn found Grusha sitting alone by the river. "It never truly goes away, does it?" she said when he sat beside her. "The hatred, the suspicion. We can build all the bridges we want, but some people will always see me as the enemy." "Some people, yes," Finn agreed, "but not most. And not the ones who matter. Did you see how many people told that drunk fool to shut his mouth? That is the real Haven's Reach. Not perfect, but trying, getting better every day." Grusha leaned against his shoulder. "When did you become so wise?" "I am not wise. I am just stubbornly optimistic." "There is a difference," she laughed, some of the tension leaving her frame. "I love you, you know." "I know," Finn said, kissing the top of her head. "I love you too." As autumn approached, bringing the first hint of cold to the air, Finn realized he had been in Haven's Reach for nearly 6 months. Half a year since he had left his farm, his old life. He sometimes thought about it, wondered if the fields had gone to seed, if animals had moved into the empty house. But those thoughts came less and less frequently. This was his home now, this valley with its patchwork community and impossible peace. This life with Grusha was what mattered. It was on a crisp October morning that Finn made his decision. He had been thinking about it for weeks, turning the idea over in his mind like a stone worn smooth by water. Now, watching Grusha work in their garden, her face serene in the golden light, he knew it was time. That evening, he asked Mira for help with a particular project. She listened to his plan, a knowing smile spreading across her face. "About time," she said. "I was wondering when you would get around to it. Yes, I can help. Give me 2 days." Finn spent those 2 days in an agony of anticipation and nerves. He worked on their house, practiced what he would say, changed his mind a dozen times and changed it back again. Felix, who had figured out what was happening, thought it was hilarious. "You survived a journey across hostile territory, fought off raiders, and built a new life from nothing," Felix said, clapping him on the shoulder. "But this has you terrified. "This is different," Finn said. "It really is not, but I understand." Felix's expression softened. "She's going to say yes, you know. Anyone with eyes can see how much she loves you." "I hope you are right." On the third day, Mira delivered what Finn had requested, a ring, beautifully crafted from silver and set with a small green stone. "The stone came from the mountains," Mira explained. "It is traditional in Orcish culture to give a stone from your homeland as a pledge of commitment. I thought Grusha might appreciate the symbolism." Finn stared at the ring, his throat tight. "It is perfect, thank you." He chose a spot by the river, the same place where Mira had first brought them into the settlement. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, he asked Grusha to walk with him. "Is something wrong?" she asked, noticing his nervousness. "No. I just want to show you something." They walked in comfortable silence to the river's edge. The water burbled peacefully over rocks, and somewhere in the distance a bird called out its evening song. Finn took a deep breath, trying to remember the speech he had practiced. "Grusha," he began, then stopped. All his carefully planned words had fled. "I am not good at this." She turned to him, curious and a little concerned. "Not good at what?" "At saying what I feel. I am a farmer, not a poet, but I need you to understand." He took her hands. "When I found you in the snow, I thought I was just saving a life. I had no idea I was finding my future. You have given me more than I knew I needed. You have shown me what it means to be brave, to choose love over fear, to build something beautiful out of nothing." Grusha's eyes were wide, her breath coming faster. "Finn." He pulled out the ring, holding it between them. "In your culture they give stones from the homeland. In mine we give rings as a symbol of eternity, a circle with no end. This combines both. Grusha, will you marry me? Will you let me stand beside you for the rest of our lives, building a future together?" For a long moment she just stared at the ring. Then she looked up at him, and there were tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Finn slipped the ring onto her finger, his own hands shaking. Then they were kissing, laughing and crying at the same time, holding each other as if they would never let go. "I was so scared you would say no," Finn admitted when they finally broke apart. "Are you joking?" "I would have asked you myself if I had thought you wanted it." Grusha held up her hand, admiring how the ring caught the fading light. "This is the most beautiful thing I have ever owned." "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever known," Finn said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. They stayed by the river until full dark, making plans and dreaming aloud about their future. They would have the wedding in the spring, they decided, when the valley was in full bloom. They would invite the entire settlement, make it a celebration not just of their love but of everything Haven's Reach represented. And maybe, someday, they would have children who would grow up knowing both human and orc traditions, who would see mixed unions as normal and natural. When they finally walked back to the settlement, hand in hand, they found that Mira had spread the news. A small crowd had gathered outside their cabin, humans and orcs together, cheering and congratulating them. Felix produced a bottle of wine he had been saving for a special occasion. Someone started playing music. What began as a simple announcement turned into an impromptu party that lasted well into the night. Finn stood to the side at one point, watching Grusha dance with some of the settlement's children, her face alight with joy. Mira appeared at his elbow. "You did good," she said. "I got lucky," Finn replied. "Luckier than I deserve. Luck had nothing to do with it. You made a choice in that snowfield, and you kept making that choice every day after. That is not luck, that is courage." Mira smiled. "Your children are going to hear one hell of a story about how their parents met." The winter passed in a blur of wedding preparations. Grusha threw herself into planning with an enthusiasm that amused Finn to no end. She consulted with Mira on decorations, with Felix's wife Nara on combining human and orc marriage traditions, with the settlement's baker on the perfect cake. Finn contributed where he could, but mostly he just enjoyed watching her so completely happy. There were challenges, of course. A particularly harsh snowstorm in January damaged several buildings, requiring all hands to repair them. A sickness swept through the settlement in February, leaving half the population laid low for weeks. And there were the usual small conflicts that arose whenever people lived in close quarters. But through it all, the community held together, supporting each other through the difficulties. Finn and Grusha worked side by side through these challenges, and in doing so, deepened their bond with the settlement. They were no longer the newest arrivals, the strangers seeking refuge. They were part of the fabric of Haven's Reach, trusted and valued. When spring finally arrived, bringing with it the promise of new growth and warm days, the entire settlement seemed to come alive with anticipation. The wedding was set for the first day of May, a traditional human holiday that coincided with an orcish celebration of renewal. It felt appropriate, this blending of cultures and meanings. The day dawned clear and bright, the kind of perfect spring morning that felt like a gift. Finn woke early in Felix's house, where he had spent the night according to tradition. His friend helped him into the formal clothes they had made a blend of human and orcish styles, dark leather and fine linen combined. "Nervous?" Felix asked. "Terrified," Finn admitted. "What if I trip? What if I forget my vows? What if you stop worrying and just enjoy marrying the woman you love?" Felix suggested with a grin. "Come on, it is time." The ceremony was held in the settlement's central square, decorated with flowers and ribbons in both human and orcish styles. Chairs had been set up in a large circle, symbolizing the community's support surrounding the couple. Nearly everyone in Haven's Reach had turned out, dressed in their finest, talking and laughing. Finn took his place in the center of the circle, Mira standing beside him as officiant. She had been ordained in both human and orcish traditions specifically for occasions like this. The crowd quieted as music began to play a haunting melody that blended human instruments with orcish drums. Then Grusha appeared, and Finn forgot how to breathe. She wore a dress of deep green that brought out her eyes, embroidered with silver thread in patterns that represented both cultures. Her hair had been braided with flowers. She walked toward him with her head high, her smile radiant, and Finn thought he had never seen anything more beautiful in his entire life. When she took his hands, hers were trembling slightly. He squeezed them gently, reassuring. They were in this together. Mira began the ceremony, speaking first in the human tongue and then in Orcish, ensuring all present could understand. She talked about the journey that had brought Finn and Grusha together, about the courage it took to choose love over hatred, about the community they had helped build. Then it was time for the vows. Finn had written his down, afraid he would forget in the moment, but when he looked into Grusha's eyes, the paper in his pocket felt unnecessary. "Grusha," he said, his voice carrying across the silent gathering, "when I found you in the snow, I saved your life. But the truth is, you saved mine too. You showed me what it means to be brave, to stand for something greater than fear and prejudice. You taught me that love is not about comfort or safety, it is about choosing someone and choosing them again, every single day, no matter what the world throws at you. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your shelter in every storm. I promise to honor both parts of your heritage and help you pass them on to our children. I promise to keep choosing you from this day until my last day." There was not a dry eye in the assembly. Grusha was crying openly, but her smile never wavered. When it was her turn to speak, her voice was strong and clear. "Finn, in my culture, strength is everything. We measure worth by how well you fight, how fiercely you protect your clan. By those standards, you should have left me to die. Instead, you showed me a different kind of strength, the strength to be kind when hatred would be easier, to hope when despair seems logical, to love when the world says you should not. You gave me a home when I had none, a family when I was exiled, a future when I thought I had only death ahead of me. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes. I promise to build a life with you that honors where we came from and creates something new. I promise to love you with everything I am, today and always. Mira pronounced them married according to both human and orcish law, and the assembly erupted in cheers. Finn pulled Grusha close and kissed her thoroughly, no longer caring who was watching. She laughed against his lips, pure joy in the sound. The celebration that followed was legendary. Tables had been set up groaning with food, both human dishes and orcish delicacies, a feast that represented everything Haven's Reach stood for. There was music and dancing, speeches and toasts. Felix got cheerfully drunk and tried to teach everyone a complicated human dance that dissolved into chaos and laughter. Nara sang a traditional orcish blessing that brought tears to Grusha's eyes. The children ran wild with joy and too much sugar. As the sun set and lanterns were lit across the square, Finn found a quiet moment to stand with his wife, and watch their community celebrate. "Are you happy?" he asked her. Grusha turned to him, her face glowing in the lantern light. "I did not know I could be this happy. I did not know this kind of happiness existed." "Neither did I," Finn admitted, "but we found it together." "Together," Grusha agreed and kissed him softly, "always together." The party continued late into the night, but eventually Finn and Grusha slipped away to their cabin, newly expanded and decorated by their friends as a wedding gift. Inside, they found flowers everywhere, wine and food laid out, the bed piled high with new quilts. "Our family did this," Grusha said wonderingly, touching the flowers gently. "Our community. I never had that before. Even in my clan there was always competition, always fighting for position. But this," she gestured around, "this is what love looks like when it is bigger than just two people." Finn wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "We are building something good here, something that will last." They made love that night with the tenderness of new spouses and the passion of people who had fought for their right to be together. Afterward, lying tangled in the quilts, Grusha traced the lines of Finn's face in the moonlight coming through the window. "Tell me a story," she said. "About our future." Finn thought for a moment. "All right. We are going to build a bigger house because this cabin will get too small when the children come. 2 sons and a daughter maybe, or 3 daughters. We will not know until they arrive." 3 children, Grusha said, smiling. "That is ambitious. You married an ambitious man." Finn continued. "We will teach them to farm and to fight, to read in 2 languages and to respect both cultures. They will grow up in Haven's Reach, knowing peace is possible because they have lived it. And maybe when they are grown, they will help spread this peace further. Build new settlements, new communities where humans and orcs live together. And we will grow old together," Grusha added. "Gray-haired and stubborn, still bickering about the best way to plant the garden. Our grandchildren will visit, and we will tell them the story of how their grandfather found their grandmother half frozen in the snow and did the unthinkable. He saved her life and loved her." "That is a good story," Finn said softly. "It is our story," Grusha replied, "and it is only beginning." The years that followed proved them right. Finn and Grusha built their larger house, just as they had planned, with help from the entire community. It became known as a gathering place, somewhere friends could come to share meals and stories. Their first child, a daughter they named Mara, was born on a snowy winter morning 2 years after the wedding. She had her mother's green skin and amber eyes, her father's gentle smile. 2 more children followed in the years after, a son named Owen and another daughter named Sarah. The children grew up bilingual and bicultural, comfortable in both human and orcish traditions. They played with other mixed heritage children and with pure-blood human and orc kids, seeing no difference between them. They learned to farm from Finn and to fight from Grusha, to read from Mira and to work the mill from Felix. They were living proof that the two cultures could blend into something beautiful. Haven's Reach itself continued to grow. More refugees found their way to the hidden valley, seeking the peace that had become the settlement's reputation. The community expanded carefully, always maintaining the balance that made it work. They established trade with a few carefully chosen human and orc settlements that were sympathetic to their cause, bringing in resources and spreading the message that coexistence was possible. Finn and Grusha became elders of sorts, respected voices in the community council. They mediated disputes, welcomed new arrivals, and helped maintain the delicate peace that was Haven's Reach's foundation. On quiet evenings, they would sit on their porch and watch the sunset over the valley, marveling at how far they had come from that desperate day in the snow. One such evening, when Mara was 10 and the younger children were playing in the yard, Grusha took Finn's hand. "You ever regret it?" she asked. "Leaving your farm, your old life, everything you gave up?" Finn did not have to think about his answer, not for a single moment. "That farm was a place I lived. This is a life worth living. There is a difference." "I am glad," Grusha said, "because I want you to know that every day I wake up beside you I am grateful, grateful that you saw me in that snow. Grateful that you were brave enough to save me, crazy enough to love me, stubborn enough to build this life with me." "The pleasure," Finn said, kissing her hand, "has been entirely mine." They sat together as the stars came out, listening to their children's laughter, feeling the gentle evening breeze. Around them, Haven's Reach settled in for the night, smoke rising from chimneys, lights appearing in windows. It was a community at peace, proof that even in a world divided by hatred and fear, love could build bridges. Finn thought back to that morning when he had seen blood in the snow, when he had made the choice that changed everything. He had not known where it would lead, had not imagined this future. But standing at that crossroads, he had chosen compassion over fear, hope over hatred. And that choice had led him here, to this moment, to this life. Sometimes he knew the unthinkable was exactly what needed to be done. Years continued to pass, each one adding new layers to the story of Haven's Reach. Mara grew into a young woman with her mother's strength and her father's kindness, eventually falling in love with a human boy from the settlement and starting her own family. Owen became a teacher like Mira, educating the next generation in both human and orcish ways. Sarah showed a talent for healing and began training as the settlement's medic. Finn and Grusha watched their children thrive, watched their grandchildren be born into a world that was kinder than the one they had known. They grew older together, their hair graying, their movements slowing, but their love never diminishing. If anything, it deepened with each passing year, tempered by shared experiences and strengthened by unwavering commitment. On their 20th anniversary, the settlement threw them a celebration. Nearly 300 people attended now, as Haven's Reach had grown substantially. Felix, gray-bearded now but still spry, gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying at once. 20 years ago, he said, raising his glass, 2 fools decided that love was more important than every rule society had ever made. They risked everything for each other. And in doing so, they showed the rest of us that a different world was possible. To Finn and Grusha, the best kind of fools. To Finn and Grusha, the crowd echoed, raising their own glasses. Later, as they danced together in the square where they had married 2 decades ago, Grusha rested her head against Finn's shoulder. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." "We did," Finn agreed, "and I would do it all again in a heartbeat." The music played on, the celebration continued, and in the center of it all, a human man and an orc woman danced, their love a beacon of hope in a world that desperately needed it. Finn Merrick had lived a long life, longer than he had any right to expect. He saw his children marry and have children of their own. He saw Haven's Reach grow from a hidden refuge into a recognized settlement, eventually gaining official protection from a new generation of human and orc leaders who had grown tired of endless conflict. He saw the world begin, slowly, to change. But of all his achievements, all the things he had done and built, he was most proud of that first choice, the decision to pull a dying orc girl from the snow and give her a chance at life. Everything else had flowed from that moment of compassion, that refusal to let fear dictate his actions. On a warm summer evening, surrounded by his children and grandchildren, with Grusha's hand in his, Finn Merrick closed his eyes for the last time. He died peacefully, content in the knowledge that he had lived a life of meaning, that he had loved and been loved, that he had made the world a little bit better than he had found it. Grusha survived him by 5 more years, spending them teaching her grandchildren and great-grandchildren the story of their grandfather, the human who had done the unthinkable and saved an orc's life. When she finally joined Finn, she was buried beside him in the cemetery overlooking the valley, their graves marked with a simple stone that read, "Here lie Finn Merrick and Grusha, who chose love over fear and built a legacy of peace." Haven's Reach continued long after they were gone, growing into a true city of mixed heritage, a beacon of hope in a world slowly learning that humans and orcs could coexist. And at the center of it all, honored in story and song, were the memories of the farmer and the orc girl, whose love had started it all. Their children made sure the story was never forgotten. Every year on the anniversary of Finn finding Grusha in the snow, the settlement held a celebration called the Day of the Unthinkable, when they gathered to remember that sometimes the greatest courage is found in simple kindness, that love can bridge any divide, and that the choices we make in moments of crisis can echo through generations. The house Finn and Grusha had built still stood, maintained by their descendants as a reminder of where it all began. Young couples just starting out would often visit it, seeking inspiration from the love story that had founded their community. And in the garden, forever blooming through careful tending, grew the descendants of the plants Finn and Grusha had first planted together, their roots deep in soil made sacred by hope and watered by love. In the end, Finn Merrick had been right when he told Grusha that land was just dirt until you made it mean something. He had made this valley mean something. He had turned a patch of wilderness into a home, not just for himself and his wife, but for hundreds of souls seeking a better way. And all because on one cold morning, he had looked at a dying enemy and seen only someone who needed help. That was the unthinkable thing he had done, not just saving her life, but loving her, building a life with her, proving that the boundaries between human and orc were not as fixed as everyone believed. And in doing that one unthinkable thing, he had made countless other impossible things possible. The story of Finn and Grusha became legend, told not just in Haven's Reach but in settlements across the land. It became a story parents told their children, a reminder that prejudice could be overcome, that love could conquer hate, that individuals had the power to change the world one choice at a time. And somewhere, In whatever realm comes after life, Finn and Grusha rested together, their hands intertwined, their love eternal, their legacy living on in every person who heard their story and chose to believe that a better world was possible. They had started with nothing but hope and each other, and they had built something that would last forever. The unthinkable had become reality, and in doing so, had made the world a little more willing to believe in the impossible.